Welcome everyone to the Rogue Valley Water Solutions Summit, session number 2. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to give folks a couple minutes to join us in the Zoom room this evening. Okay, as folks are joining us this evening, welcome again to the Rogue Valley Water Solutions Summit. Please enjoy this short 2-minute video made and offered to us by Taylor Humphrey, a young filmmaker here in Ashland. Just 2 minutes, so enjoy this short film. Wow, that was truly beautiful. A big thank you to Taylor Humphrey, the filmmaker here in Ashland, who is here with us today. And so if we could all just give a little silent applause and shout out for Taylor Humphrey and the beautiful art that set the scene for us today for the second session of the Rogue Valley Water Summit. Welcome one and all. My name is Rihanna Sims. I'm going to be your host tonight. I live over here in Talent on Verdant Phoenix Farm in the Anderson Creek watershed. We're going to ask each of you to please mute yourselves while we get started. Tonight, I'm really proud to represent Cultivate Oregon, a nonprofit that empowers responsible food and farming, as well as working to support seeds. We're also joined with the Community Website Partnership, whose purpose is to strengthen rural communities and bring people together through technology. We're joined tonight with our technical specialist, Stephen Williams, who's in the Zoom room with us, and he is available via chat for any technical issues or challenges that might come up. Feel free to use the chat to talk to Stephen with the Community Website Partnership. So thank you, Stephen, for your support tonight. I'm really honored to host the second session of the Rogue Valley Water Solutions Summit. Thank you so much for returning. We just want to give a quick acknowledgement of the Rogue Valley Water Solutions Summit organizing team. This is a group of 4 motivated elders who really asked, if not us, then who? And so we really honor you each on the organizing team tonight, and we'll be able to say thank you again. But thank you for all for being here and being part of the solution. This evening, we're going to receive a water blessing from Coyote Marie. Thank you for being here. We're really honored that you took time to share a water blessing with us this evening. We'll be hearing from some special guests. We'll have a time for question and answers. But really part of why we've asked you to come is in our breakout circles, where we'll each choose a topic, have discussions across sectors, and really be able to discover solutions together. We'll come back, we'll bring some of those ideas to the big circle, and then we'll have a closing with gratitudes and appreciations. So if you could please, again, use the chat for comments, for questions, but please do remain muted unless you need to speak. Again, if you need help, Stephen is there to support you. In the chat, we'll put a link here. If you have not yet chosen a breakout circle topic, please do complete the form there so that we can help you find the conversation that you'd like to be a part of. If you do not choose a topic, we were going to select a great one for you. So know that you will end up talking to some great folks who are in the room. Okay, we're going to turn it over to Cynthia, part of the Water Solutions organizing team, for the land acknowledgement. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Rihanna. Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia Taylor, and I am on the, I'm a member of the core team of the Southern Oregon Pachamama Alliance, and I am on the organizing team for the Water Solutions Summit. This summit is dedicated to Grandmother Agnes Baker Pilgrim, known to many of us as Grandma Aggie. She was a steadfast voice for water for many, many years, and her appreciation for water informs us still. So I invite you to settle in and take a deep breath as we become present to one another during our conversations this evening. As we gather, it is fitting to remember and honor the original nations who gathered in this valley before us, people who lived sustainably here for thousands of years. This acknowledgement was composed on the unceded land belonging to tribes who lived here and to those descendants who live here still. Though some tribal names may have been forgotten, we honor and name those tribes that we do know: the Tequilma and Lagawa, the Shasta, the Klamath, Modoc, and Yahuskin. We know the ancestors of this land were abused and uprooted, and many were murdered by colonists more than a century ago. But their love and respect for the land, the elementals, and all of the living beings here continues to bless this valley. We endeavor to learn from them and to honor and learn from their descendants still living in the Rogue Valley. Let us do what we can to dismantle systems of oppression and that have dispossessed indigenous people of their lands while denying their rights to self-determination. Tonight, let us take to heart the gift of observing their practices of working with natural systems for the benefit of everyone and everything. I'm very honored to introduce our special guest this evening, Reverend Coyote Marie Hunter Ripper, who will offer a water blessing. Reverend Coyote is a traditional Cherokee practitioner and ordained minister here in the Rogue Valley. She is the director of All Nations Education and Wellness, which is offering classes and workshops, and she is an international speaker and activist for human rights and social justice. She offers a vast array of ceremonies, drawing on her Cherokee, Choctaw, and Scottish heritage. Thank you, Reverend Coyote.
OCO, that's a Cherokee word for hi, how are you all doing? So here we go with some really good words and a little bit of teaching that I'd like to offer you with the permission of all of my elders. I bring you their wisdom and my ancestral lineage forward to share here today. So, you know, the last long distance water blessing was in Bangladesh, Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, and that was at the Rohingya refugee camp, where they were pumping brown water out of the ground and drinking it and bathing in it. So I wanted to touch on that a little bit to get us in the sense of how fortunate we are here in Southern Oregon in terms of clean water. So far, so good, right? Then the other place I went was was in Bangkok, Thailand. There was a big ruckus going on there, revolting against the prime minister. And there were thousands and thousands more people in Bangkok than usual. And everyone tried to get a blessing with water there. That was quite an extraordinary event. And those people were very appreciative of having their water blessed. Then a little closer to home, I was in North Dakota. And the river running through there, we got some water from there and did a blessing throughout the camps. I think the last place I was at was in Mexico, where we crossed the border and singing songs and saying prayers and dancing for the children that were being held there at the border. And we took lots of water from the ocean and cast it about for blessings. And when we were done with that particular blessing, 7 whales showed up quite close to us, only several feet off from the beach that we was on. So I'm mentioning some of this because I want to present the gratification and the verification that we all receive when we do these type of blessings. In many of the areas, what we found was contamination, poisons in the water, rivers in the rivers that had such a high level of animal and human excrement, you couldn't even touch it. And that's what I'm here to share with you in terms of thanking you and honoring you all that are here present for cleaning the rivers and the oceans up. We need to stay at it, get with it, get organized, just like you folks are here. We really need to continue this type of organizing, sharing, and communicating, not with just each other, but as mentioned earlier, with the Indigenous people that came first here, just not in Oregon or Southern Oregon, but from all over the world. We need to be in touch with them and say, hey, what do you think about this? You know, how can we do this better? And we're here, they're here. So ask, and you'll get lots of direction and information. So one of the rituals I'd like to share with you is to take a glass of water. I understood that people were going to bring a glass of water with them to this site. Is that correct? If you don't have one, go ahead and grab one quickly if you can. This is a Selu, S-E-L-U, Sailor Corn Woman water blessing, where we honor all four of the directions with the water that we have in hand. Some of you may want to stand to face the four different sacred directions. I got a twirly whirly chair here, so I'm just going to turn in my chair as we do this. Janitsi Selu is the corn woman and mother of us all. When we honor the four directions with water, it mingles with the water that is in our bodies and stimulates cleanliness, clarity, cleansing. And I know you all are going to feel that sharing this ritual with me. So we begin in the east where the sun rises. Don't worry too much about which, if you have the direction exactly, but as close to the east as you can get. You face that particular direction and you hold the water up to the sky and say, I forgive everyone.
I forgive everyone.
That's a big one. And then turn north. I forgive myself.
I forgive myself.
Turn again to the west. I forgive all past experiences. Did you hear that one? I've lost the sound.
We're still with you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
One person wasn't muted, so I just muted them, but we're with you. We're all
you.
with you.
All
Okay,
past
thank you.
experiences.
So let's do that again. We're facing the west. I forgive all past experience.
I forgive all
Forgive all
past
past experiences.
And then turn again, where you're completing the circle, and say, I am free.
Pardon me?
I am free.
I
am free.
I am free.
am free.
Well, I do. So you have permission to do this ritual whenever you feel it. And if you feel it, you have permission to use those very same words and follow that very same direction. If you are going to do this particular ritual, it's nice to set aside some time. Same time every morning or same time every afternoon. I always try to do it at the first light. That's a good time for me because it kind of sets the day to be more peaceful and calm. And I find that I don't use my horn as much when I'm traveling.
Thank you so much, Reverend Coyote. These, your words really touch our hearts, and it's so good to be reminded of how fortunate we are in this area, but also that our work makes a difference. Thank you very much.
Yes, this particular ritual, Lorraine, is for everyone. That if we don't do these kind of practices, we're really not taking care of each other. And if we don't take care of each other, how are we going to take care of the water? We're doing a lot for the water, but are we doing a lot for our neighbors, for our community, for our governments? It goes all the way through that thread in order for us to be tied together in positive energy. I have one more ritual I'd like to share with you with the same water that you have now. go ahead and take a drink of your water. Bring the glass up to your lips and take a glug, couple sips. Not so much, not too much. Don't drink all your water because I'm going to do something else with it. And set it down on the table. And with this particular eco medicine, I'm going to send out stimulation in the third eye, where your intuitiveness increases. I'm going to send out being able to see when something troubling is coming before it gets there. I'm going to send out medicine to be able to fly above it all. When things get a little messy down here, you can have the perspective of the eagle eye. Now put both of your hands on the glass and pick it up again, and it's quite a bit heavier than when you first picked it up. Anyone experiencing the heaviness now? So as you go along through the evening, this energy in here is going to continue to get more and more stimulated. And where the water is being held in, the water is going to feel heavier, and the glass is the container that it's in is going to feel heavier as well. And then later on, before you go to bed this evening, you can drink the rest of the water. Then later, you can also use this container that is now blessed with the eco medicine to always drink water out of it, and you can get the same type of energy from it. Thank you for having me here, Wadu. I appreciate all of you and the work that you're doing, and we'll continue to go forward. And everyone can do a silent yay. Wadu.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was spectacular. Wow. Thank you. I'll turn the meeting over to Katie Farrow, our highly regarded and tireless member of the Water Summit organizing team. Katie Farrow is a woman who will not take no for an answer. Katie, take it away.
Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you, Coyote and Mariana. I have the privilege tonight to introduce some of our special guests. I have a real short little presentation of my own. I wanted to introduce a little bit more about Southern Oregon Pachamama. So welcome to our second session of the Rogue Valley Water Summit, where we're going to be talking about domestic and industrial water issues and solutions in Jackson and Josephine County. And I am delighted to share a bit about Southern Oregon Pachamama Alliance, a chapter of an international movement dedicated to bringing forth environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just human presence on this planet. Our initial Water Summit organizing team is 4 women, all over 70, who felt a great need to engage with the public and many agencies in search of solutions to prepare for events we see happening in other regions and across the world. Our mission is to educate the public by offering what is regarding our water systems and sources, and to inspire the public and all entities to consider and create what could be. The first part of our efforts has generated a vast collection of regional background information and materials on our website, and engaged many water managers, environmental experts, politicians, and nonprofits statewide. The envisioning effort, or what could be, includes exploring the indigenous perspectives and rights of nature, dream office-y water ceremonies, many hopes, prayers, and blessings, and consulting with many trusted advisors and members of our 13 co-sponsor organizations. Our team had lots of fun actually using water metaphors throughout this last many months, and actually chose water names for ourselves or named each other. So Lorraine Cook, also known as Rain, Cynthia Taylor, Misty, Lauren Oliver, Flowing, and they named me Tsunami, I guess because of my flood of activities and all the overwhelming questions I brought to this effort. Some maybe not as well informed as could be, but we are learning with you. As an artist, I believe that to a great extent, as we believe and act, so it will be. Our team shied away from addressing the water issues through the burning lens of climate change and instead looked locally to bring forth achievable solutions. Our problems are human caused, and therefore that means they're also humanly solvable. Our summit is not the first time that water solutions have been proposed for Southern Oregon, and past efforts were deemed too expensive. But as the 21st century has dawned full of difficulties, I believe we're now at a crossroads where the cost of fixing problems proactively is far less than the immense expense that will be incurred if problems aren't addressed. Our economy and our well-being depend on the health of nature all around us. Examining and adjusting our domestic and industrial water use can help us keep Southern Oregon a good place to live and raise our families. Perhaps the most important of all of this is the children. Our children and grandchildren deserve our very best efforts now. One of our viewers from last session made a wonderful suggestion about respecting and appreciating water. She asked us all to have a glass of the universal solvent on hand tonight and really consider this gift we must cherish, protect, and preserve. So here's to all of you. Thanks for being here, and cheers. Now I guess I'll go ahead and introduce our special guests, and I hope we can put them up on the screen. Jeff Golden, who really needs no introduction. He's probably one of the finest county commissioners by far, and one of the finest state senators we've ever had. And we are so blessed to have him there advocating. I almost feel like crying because, Jeff, you have been fabulous from day one. I'm a big fan. I think I will introduce all of the, well, maybe I won't do that. I think what I'll do, we're going to kind of each in turn have the speakers, panelists answer one pretty tough question. So after Jeff answers this question, we'll go to the next panelist. Jeff, here's your question. What are the pressures, limitations, obstacles, and existing and future problems for domestic and industrial water?
Well, first of all, Katie, thank you for your acknowledgement. It's very generous. And for the organization here, and that to all of you who are exploring solutions to all this and sort of calling the question before we are wholly out of potable water in the West and in Southern Oregon. You know what I think would be more fruitful than me trying to answer this question is just playing the video that we saw a couple more times. I'm still feeling refreshed from that. But let me, I actually prepared a couple other remarks that'll touch on all this in terms of sort of from a Salem perspective. And then I would really like to keep my remarks fairly short because we have on this panel people who are leading the effort in Southwest Oregon and the Rogue Valley that we care about. And their expertise is a lot deeper than mine. And I'd rather listen to them than talk. But I will say that, you know, the convergence of our carelessness with water, our whole lifetimes, and climate change has brought us to the point where even the state legislature is paying attention. And in the last two sessions, Oregon has invested about $500 million in water improvements, which is, I don't know how many times more than we've ever invested before. And it was opportunistic in that we had federal dollars that we've never had before in COVID relief, and then more recently in infrastructure. And I think some of the panelists can talk about where some of those dollars are headed. But we leverage that with a lot of Oregon taxpayer dollars. And I have on my website some information about how that money breaks down. But most of it, disproportionate amount went to the east side, which is really suffering, really both quality of life and economic challenges from the drought. And here in the Rogue Valley, not much money from that appropriation has come so far. There was a collaboration between the Rogue River Water District and the Medford Water District that got a grant for some of that money. But the water districts really have to be proactive and plan and have something ready, because the scramble for these funds when they come up is so intense. There is renewed effort in the old WISE project, which so many of you know about. Well, how long has that been talked about? I was a county commissioner in the 80s, and we were talking about that. And the general consensus or any outcome was that the $50 million estimated cost then to pipe all of our canaled water and preserve or capture the 40% that we lose was too expensive. I don't know what the price tag for that is now, 10 times that. And I think, Katie, your remarks about how we're reevaluating what real value and what's too expensive. And I think you were sort of saying, can we afford not to move forward on this? I think that's getting some momentum, and we are going to see continued investment to the extent we can. There's I could list for you the areas in which we invested in the last couple of sessions because we had federal dollars that needs sustaining, wildfire being one of them, housing, mental health. So we've got a big resource question, but we really need to, a challenge and an opportunity is to continue to address the demand side. There has been a lot of conservation, but boy, is there a lot of gain still there. And we want to encourage water providers and municipalities to get more aggressive about block pricing, where everyone gets a certain threshold of water at a reasonable unit rate, and then you start increasing your unit price as consumption increases until lawns are just not economically viable for most people. There's going to be a lot of discussion. I chair the Natural Resources Committee, so it comes to my committee, and I'm trying to generate some interest in water reuse, and which in other states takes the form of code requirements for new construction to have secondary water systems for gray water. Sometimes it's called purple piping, so that our drain water can water our landscape and our outdoors, anything that doesn't need potable use. And that's a real economic challenge when you're talking about retrofitting homes. But is it time, perhaps now, to join a few other states who require it in new construction? And then you get into a dilemma about the cost of housing, particularly in home builders push back and say, you're always whining about the cost of housing, and then you're adding mandates that make housing more expensive. So we have trade-offs there. And I really think, lastly, for now, if I'm going to keep to my intent to be fairly brief, in the agricultural sector, we are captive, like just about any state, to a system of seniority and water rights that is as old as the European incursion into the West, and is as close to a sacred cow, as sacred a cow as you get. Legislators run from the room when you bring up the possibility of revising the way our water rights system works. But the fact is, we don't have a way to really strongly motivate the most senior water rights holders to really efficiently use their water. And that's a really difficult political conversation, but I don't see how we can endure what lies ahead without placing the responsibility on senior rights owners to do everything they can to reduce demand. That's a real paradigm shift for us. So I hope that pecked away at some of your question there, and I'm happy to stick around and maybe jump in at another time, but I'd really like to hear from the other folks. Thanks again
Well,
for
thank you.
inviting me.
Thank you, Jeff. That was excellent information. And water rights will be a topic down the road, probably in all the sessions. So thank you for bringing that up in particular. Let me see. I guess our next panelist is Kate Jackson, who I see here. And Kate, I don't know if you want to answer the question. I will introduce you as an environmental policy specialist and local civic activist. Kate was there and helped Ashland recover from the flooding in Ashland in 1997. My house got flooded, so thank you. And she was elected to the city council and served 2 terms there. She's been active in many regional problem-solving initiatives and recently retired from a position as a regional liaison for the Department of Environmental Quality. So Kate, would you want to answer the question, or do you want to just kind of speak to, as Jeff did? I think that's fine too.
I'll try to get at the question, but I was thinking about the topic, kind of from my own perspective earlier. To just add to the background you gave about me, those 25 years, I've lived in the Rogue Valley for 30 years, and in those 25 years since the New Year's Day flood, I've been involved in civic activity, and it's been primarily with existing public institutions, right? So city council, county government with city input. The regional problem solving land use process was one of the long running collaborative discussions that I was in, much like WISE that Jeff referred to, and other forestry projects. Ashland Forest Resiliency has been in the works under several names since at least the early 90s, when the city first hired Marty Main as a city forester. So there's been a considerable amount of collaborative effort that has engaged citizens at the Citizens Advisory Committee level and at the policy level where I've been. But there's also been just such complexity and then resistance to the inability of the agencies to change their guideposts and of the legislatures to revise, for lack of a more complex word, the existing legal system. The existing, not just the water rights is absolutely huge, but so is environmental permitting, water policy, air quality policy. So there's just a lot of institutional complexity, and a lot of people have been working at this for a long time, and we need new, better, different ways of bringing that activity and the energy forward. So I really look to I am just so pleased with this summit. I'm really impressed with the entire team that's put it together. I think it's already a terrific success, and I look forward to finding new people to work with on these issues. But I actually would bring back in the climate impact, mainly because it's unavoidable, right? When I worked for the state and I was a regional liaison, we were not allowed to use the word climate change because it would turn off the local officials that we were working with, and we wanted to have conversational relationships with them. So from 2015, I'd say, or maybe 2017, when that was still unmentionable, now it's unavoidable. Not only have we been in a drought in Southern Oregon since 2015, but we've had smoke 4 out of 6 summers since 2017 for weeks at a time, which causes the public health impact of the smoke. We've had increasing heat. So now heat stress is recognized as a public health impact all over the world, but also here. So all of those, the climate impacts are cumulatively increasing the stress on our systems. So while we have, and we need to find ways to collaboratively influence the institutions, we also need to, as individuals and groups, find ways to talk about what does it mean to live within our means, right? One of the huge challenges in the water management ideas is gray infrastructure, building infrastructure. It's very expensive. Can we, as communities, find ways to use less? And that includes each of us, includes landscaping, lawns, farming, and agriculture for sure. So,
Well, that's wonderful. I think you've covered a huge range of ideas, and we're really running short on time to get to the breakout session. So I'm going to go ahead and thank you very much and introduce Greg Stayback, who's the Natural Resources Manager for RVCOG. If you don't know what that means, RVCOG, Rogue Valley Council of Governments, which actually formed out of a lot of citizen action many years ago. And I'm really hoping all of these people, including RVCOG, will again take some leadership on the issues. So I think I'm getting background chat from people saying we should stick with the question. What are the pressures, limitations, obstacles, and future or existing problems for domestic and industrial water, in your opinion? Or in your knowledge?
So again, that's a tall order. I did jot down some notes, and my background comes a lot from water quality, watershed stewardship. So a little bit different, from, we're probably a little bit more related to drinking water through the Rogue Drinking Water Partnership. So looking at, how the impacts are to that, and then also use. So some of the pressures that we're seeing is there's definitely insufficient supplies. Things are really getting worse. And again, sort of the changing climate is how we like to categorize it. I mean, things are different. I mean, it's just a reality. We have mutually exclusive uses and competing uses. So we have, 100 units of water, we need 500, and, they only can go so far. We have domestic, industrial, commercial, we have habitat. So we have a lot of issues there. In addition to the supply issues, we have water that is either too hot from habitat perspective, it's too dirty. So there's water quality issues we have to deal with. We have some aging infrastructure limitations. We have increasing population. Again, I mentioned the supplies. Let's see what else. Obstacle is, we're Jeff kind of touched upon this, thinking about resources and how much it would be to tackle some of these big issues. While not related to water, we looked at, managing, blackberries fire, and the cost was too prohibitive. We had a big fire, cost a lot more. So applying thought processes like that for some of the water resources, like Jeff was talking about the WISE project, and some of that, will maybe revisiting some of these ideas, because we do have limitations of resources, we have limitations funding, staff, law in some cases. I know there is some chatter about water rights. That's certainly an issue. We have public perception. Kate mentioned gray water, in terms of looking at, reusing treated water from a wastewater treatment plant for irrigation and leaving more water in streams. That has people have various opinions on that. So just looking at some of those issues, redundancies, really thinking about some of the things that we deal with is, if there's some sort of major catastrophe, earthquake, or anything else, what's going to happen? I mean, if we get to the point of, we turn on the tap and there's nothing there, that's when, hard choices are going to have to be made. So thinking about backup systems, some of these supply issues, preparing for the inevitable. And I think everybody covered pretty well some of the existing and the future problems. Again, that changing climate, can't ignore that. The decreasing supplies. We've always had an issue, even when water was more plentiful, of not necessarily getting it when we needed it. It's generally not as plentiful in the summer, so that affects, our agriculture, home use, everything like that. And we also have some aging infrastructure. So, just a lot of different concerns that, we're all working on trying to figure out. And, it's not an easy nut to crack, that's for sure.
That is quite a list, Greg. I really appreciate that. I came across many of those things, and I don't want to say we're not looking at climate change. We actually, Pachamama Alliance here, taught drawdown for years. And we're very aware, but we're trying to engage people in the solutions, to not be so afraid or so just overwhelmed that nothing can be done. So I'm glad you have a list, and I'll be talking to you a lot more in the future. Some of these things that you're bringing up are in future sessions, but I better go on to lovely Julie Smitherman, and I got to compliment both of you, right, Greg and Julie, on your backgrounds. Just absolutely beautiful. So Julie has been in touch with me quite a bit, and I really appreciate that. I'm looking back on my notes to say I've lost my place. Julie, do you want to introduce yourself? I know you've worked in Ashland for years, and you are actually kind of the queen of conservation in my view. Tell me about your new position of Medford. And then go ahead and tell us what you think about that question of
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. I was with the city of Ashland for about 9 years running water conservation programs, and spent a lot of time dealing and working on a lot of these issues that we're bringing up tonight. And I have to say that everyone has been spot on so far with talking about the issues that we're dealing with and that we're looking at going forward, the challenges that exist. I've been doing this now for about 14 years. I work now at the Medford Water Commission, and I am the water efficiency and customer service manager there. So everyone has really already touched on quite a few of these issues. So I won't go on too long about it, but I think that it's important to talk about it from a supplier perspective, the challenges that exist, the pressures that we're going to be seeing, and that has to do with our changing climate. A lot of people have already spoken about increased temperatures. Well, what does increased temperatures lead to? An increase in demand, right? So an increase in water use. Also with that is we're going to have less snowpack, and many of our water systems and water supplies rely on snowpack to get through the summer months. So we are seeing, we had a presentation recently by Larry O'Neill. He's our state climatologist. He talked about how we will still be seeing similar precipitation coming into the future, but given the increase in temperatures, we'll have an earlier snowmelt, which will shift our stream flows to different times of year. So those are going to be some challenges that water utilities and municipalities are going to be facing. But it's also important to remember that each system is unique. And so each system is impacted in a different way, and some more severe than others, as we've seen with our irrigation districts and the reservoirs that feed the irrigation districts. So some of the limitations on our water supply is going to be water availability, right? Because we can have the capacity, we can have the water rights, but is the water there to use? And I know we've seen that this year and the last 3 years, really, with this compounding drought that we've been having. We may see more of this in the future, so we have to be take that into consideration. A lot of local municipalities and water suppliers have a water management and conservation plan that is a guide for working through situations like this. In those plans, there is what we call a curtailment plan. And so it has about 5 steps in it, and it starts out with a voluntary measure, and then goes through 2 would be, again, adding restrictions such as watering days and so forth. And then stage 5 would probably be a biggest emergency. So it'd be all hands on deck, everybody conserve and reduce as much as possible. The obstacles that we see with some of these things and with making improvements to our system, we talked about aging infrastructure and being more efficient and with our delivery systems. And the obstacles there are definitely going to be about the funding. And securing funds, and suppliers can go after grants, they can go after low interest loans, but it's also going to take work on the community and the customer part. And not only is it the responsibility of the water supplier to manage a water system responsibly and as efficiently as possible, but it's also the responsibility of us as consumers of that water to also be using it as efficiently as we can, and for looking for ways to reduce waste. As Jeff Golden said, that we've done a lot in our area on conservation and efficiency, but there's so much more potential. There's so much more that we can do there. And so looking for those solutions, we need to work together. And that's what I see us going forward, is that these challenges are creating opportunities for us to work together as a region, as a community, and find the solutions and make it happen. Instead of talking about it, actually find the solutions and follow through and make things happen.
Right.
I know that there's been a lot of steps again locally, and we just need to continue to strive to be using the water as efficiently as we can and cut back on the waste where we can do that.
Thank you, Julie. That was very, very good information. I want to remind everybody, a lot of these people are going to be helping in breakout sessions. So we're going to keep having them coming back. Our last panelist is Larry Cooper. And Larry's just going to give us a little upbeat report on the intergovernmental agreement. So Larry, if you could quickly do that, and then we're going to get right into the breakout groups.
Okay, I think, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I really appreciate the mention of collaboration as part of the solution. I think we're going to end this presentation on an upbeat note. I'm going to read basically just a 3-minute synopsis of the water rights management and water sharing plan that's been adopted here in the Bear Creek Valley and maybe a little extension into Eagle Point as well. Water is a precious but limited resource in Southern Oregon. Because of this, the cities of Ashland, Central Point, Eagle Point, Jacksonville, Phoenix, and Talent, collectively referred to as the partner cities, they're partners with the Medford Water Commission, have come together to protect and ensure access to this vital resource, water. The reason we needed the partnership is because the partnership agreement around water rights was because the partner cities hold numerous and separate water rights to the water stored in Lost Creek Reservoir. And that's water that is used during the summer season, the warmer season by all these entities via the Medford Water Commission. Those water rights authorize the diversion of water at the MWC's Duff Treatment Plant on the Rogue River. And because of the complications associated with managing multiple water rights at a single point of diversion, the partner cities and Medford Water must work together to manage these water rights to ensure that all are protected. This alliance also allows for the sharing of water supplies. Water sharing eliminates the need for some partner cities to obtain new water rights, which would only further complicate water rights management. Ultimately, the partnership's efforts will help diversify the region's water supply portfolio, increase the long-term reliability of the water supplies, and provide additional tools for managing through water shortages and drought. The partner cities and Medford Water entered into a cooperative agreement for developing this strategy in 2019, and in February of 2020, they identified a recommended approach that involved 2 basic elements: water rights certification coordination, which is about certifying or perfecting water rights, and a water sharing plan. Under the water sharing plan framework, the partner cities retain ownership and control of their water rights and continue to use water under their own rights from May 1st to September 30th each year. At the end of each year, Medford Water will compare each city's water use to the volume of water authorized by its water rights. Any partner cities that use more water than authorized by their water rights would provide compensation to the other partner cities for use of water under their rights. And as of July of this year, all the partner cities have agreed to this water sharing and water rights sharing plan. And this was done through their elected representatives, their councils, and their city managers. The IGA, as it's called, the Intergovernmental Agreement, is intended to be supplemental to treat and transport and wholesale water agreements. Those are the agreements that provide the transport and of pure water to the various cities that are the partners. My basic take on the IGA is that it's a very good way to manage the water rights for the TAP, the Talent Ashland Phoenix pipeline, which we're more familiar with here in Ashland, and also to enable Ashland to sometimes make use of excess in years when the Ashland Creek supply is adequate until well into July. And some of that water could be used by other partners who might not have as great a water right and might have a greater use for the water in a particular year. The IGA also seems to provide a good way for cities to certify their water rights, which is vitally important for the cities to maintain their access and ownership of that water. My other takeaway is that the IGA points to a cooperative and collaborative approach to water in the Bear Creek Valley and the greater region. This is the approach that we all need in order to be resilient in the face of ongoing climate warming and environmental change that comes with it. And I just want to say, I so appreciate the other panelists who are more expert than I am, but I do have some expertise in this area, but I'm going to defer talking about that to provide more time for our breakouts.
That's certainly a positive new thing to think about. And I see that there's been some questions in the chat. Lorraine, I saw one question that was kind of asking, could that kind of agreement be extended into other areas beyond the potable water? So I guess we'll see. We do have other questions, mini questions, and I'm almost wondering if we might not submit them to our panel in writing later so that you could, really give us your answers. But Lorraine, are you wanting to take any questions from the people that are on the call?
I'll just mention that question you brought up. Dorian Hastings was asking if there's anything similar to the intergovernmental agreement happening in irrigation districts. Anybody know about that?
I don't know about a specific intergovernmental agreement, but I do know that the irrigation districts, some of them have been working together to do some piping projects on those canals and those open pipes. But I am not sure about an intergovernmental agreement.
I think we'll get into some of that in session 3, which is mainly about the agriculture, and also session 4. There was one other question that I thought was kind of important. What are the pros or cons of expanding existing reservoirs? Can anybody speak to that?
I would just like to briefly say we're not California. We don't have places that we could. Our reservoirs don't store water from one season to the next, and that's something that once you understand that, you understand the importance of being efficient and careful about using water. I'm more familiar with Ashland's reservoir, right, Reeder Reservoir, and we're very fortunate that we have a very productive watershed that fills that reservoir, but we use that water. And,
right. But I think that the question,
water to hold over.
I think, Larry, the question was pointing more towards some things we've read in the paper about taking trees out at the base of Mount McLaughlin in order to get more flow to Big Butte Springs watershed. and
Ah.
whether that's a good idea or not a good idea. But we can.
Well, I don't know if I'll get into whether it's a good idea or not a good idea, but I will say that it's meant for source water protection. So we are protecting, doing what we can to manage the source at Big Butte Springs and protect that supply however we possibly can. And I don't know any more than that is specific to that project.
Okay, Jeff, did you want to add? Jeff, I think you're muted.
I wanted to underscore how important the question is. It's going to become increasingly important because people are aware that the best forecasting calls for roughly the same amount of precipitation, but less snowpack.
Exactly.
So then the natural next question is, if we don't have good snowpack, releasing water like it used to gradually in ways that we could use, where can we put that water and have effectively the same amount of total water available? So that question is I'm hearing it asked more and more, and I'm not sure I know the answer to the question. I'd like to have one.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Well, thank you to our panel. I'm going to send you a whole bunch of more questions, if that's okay, to get it straight from you. Because that's really our learning curve, and that's why we have this big public listening and wanting to participate in helping problem solve before we, get in a worse situation. I'm thinking I probably need to turn this back over to Cynthia to set up the breakout groups, but I think all of you are participating, except maybe I know Jeff has another commitment. And Jeff, thank you so much. And thank all of you for your time. And I'm just so glad to see your faces. That makes it really fun.
I just so appreciate that you're making this conversation happen in such a constructive way. And, it's late, but you are doing this before you absolutely have to. And we need to broaden the conversation.
I think our team is very positive and proactive, and we're putting a lot of really positive energy into it. And I think it shows. We had rings of fires burning around us, and here we're holding this as a really beautiful practice of honoring the water. So
go Pachamama.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Welcome back. Cynthia, are you there?
I am. Hopefully I won't get bumped off again. Sorry about that the last time. I know there were a lot of great productive conversations, and I know that we have so many more questions. Boy, this session is just jam-packed with information. We want to hear as many of these ideas as possible. So please, you have access to that Google Doc. Please add anything to your group that your scribe didn't have time to get in there, and we will address as many things as we can later. I think, Rihanna, you're going to take us to the Jamboard, but I see Belle has her hand up. Do we have time for this question?
Well, you know what? I just really wanted to acknowledge for you, the organizing team, what you did between session 1 and session 2 to have the scribe in each of these groups be able to actually get notes down. It's a world of difference. And I just, as a scribe for both session 1 and 2, I just so thank you, because I was just able to kind of stay with it. My group should go back and check what was left out, but this is really the meat of of what we're doing here, and it's fabulous. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks to Rihanna for suggesting that, and I was very apprehensive about that, but she was right on about it. So thank you very much.
Nothing.
For acknowledging that.
Just his film.
So I think we do have time. We'd love to hear some of what your conversations, what you shared, and what ideas, what solutions came up in your groups that you were inspired by. Feel free to raise your hand or use the reactions at the bottom, but let's share, let's report back. And what did you find that was inspiring?
I just want to say that I'm really happy that I got invited to the second session, and that people are really committing to something like this. This was last minute for me, so it's all new, but it's wonderful what's happening. And I'm looking forward to session 3.
Right.
Looks like we have 2 hands up. Paul Sheldon is one, and I don't know who the other one is, but go
I think
ahead,
it's
Paul.
David Morris. This is Paul. I'll jump in. We were the Examining Industrial Water Allotments and Rates group. Very lively discussion among the 5 of us. 2 of the 5 people were in a group that they weren't anticipating being in and participated actively and meaningfully anyway. We had a lot of concern about rates and lack of transparency and coordination. We don't know where we would go to find out who is using how much water valley-wide or what the rates are valley-wide. There were some questions about the intergovernmental agreement and whether or not the Council of Governments could participate in getting coordination among all the water agencies, at least about rates and uses. And of course, all of the big decisions about big water users are political, not environmental. And so that's an issue to be addressed. I think that Jeff Golden raised as well. And we were all concerned that we don't know enough about this topic and would like to.
Yeah, I was, I don't know how my sound is, but I could come in and out. We'll see.
Sounds good, David.
Yeah, I was in the number 14 group, something about beavers. And I've always appreciated beavers and what they do. And what they do is they slow down water. One of our people was Lion, and I hadn't met him before. But I'm saying he is a water saving pro. And we need to have his information, and we need to really talk more about the water that we have and using it better. He's really on top of that. Preventing waste, misuse, and basically getting more use out of the water that we. I really appreciated that.
Rihanna, how are we doing okay time-wise? I know Judy has her hand up, and some people are giving reports for their group kind of as they speak. So can we just go ahead with the people who have their hands raised? And
Yes, that sounds great. Let's go Judy and then Christopher and then Trish. That sounds great. Thank you. Hi there.
Hi. So I was in group number 2, exploring innovations in home water saving systems. And our group talked about different ways of conserving water. One was using a bucket in your sink. And when it's full, you take it out and you water your garden. And also changing the aesthetics around gardens, looking at xeriscaping and native plants, and also really looking at the plants that are already adapted to our environment and planting those. We talked about why aren't we using composting toilets as an option, which doesn't use any water. And I thought that was really a wonderful thing that was brought forward. And then we talked a little bit about water systems, and it isn't really so difficult to put in a gray water system. I guess that there's lots of information about how to do that, but the obstacle becomes the permitting process. So that's something that definitely needs to be looked into and perhaps streamlined. I don't know. But you can use, it's easy to use gray water from washing machines or dishwashers because there's not really that bacteria. There's not necessarily a lot of bacteria in that. For some of the other things like toilets and stuff, it becomes more problematic. That's it.
thank you so much. I hope a lot of that's captured in the Google Doc, and if not, you can add to it. Do we have time for Christopher Hall and then Trish?
Yes, that sounds great.
You're on, Christopher.
Hello, everybody. Christopher Hall, Water League. And I was in group number 13 about the rights of nature. And the rights of nature discusses the concept about the natural setting actually being an entity that can possess rights just as we think humans can. And by doing so, we can actually stop othering nature. We can actually see ourselves in nature. A biospheric value is one that is a value that we can hold where we view ourselves as one with nature, frankly. And as I was mentioning earlier, the closest that I will ever get to nature is my own body. And if I can start seeing myself in the water, and if I can start seeing myself in the forest, and if I can start seeing myself in you, then all of a sudden I can start to relate in a way that is deeper and more just and more lovely. I would like to wrap up with a short quote by David Suzuki. Quote, "The way we see the world shapes the way we treat it. If a mountain is a deity and not a pile of ore, if a river is one of the veins of the land, not a potential irrigation water, if a forest is a sacred grove, not timber, if other species are biological kin, not resources, or if the planet is our mother, not an opportunity, then we will treat each other with greater respect. Thus is the challenge, to look at the world from a different perspective." Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I'm with you on that. Let's see, Trish was next, and then Julie.
Thank you. Okay. Our group was what is water banking, and one of our members was had experience with in California in 1977 and 87, where the rice growers in the orchards did water banking. The rice growers would not irrigate, save the water, and then sell it to the orchards down south, as I understand, or somewhere else. And it was a very complex operation, and millions of acres of water and the accounting system and all kinds of things. So anyway, it was successful, and it's been done many times since then in other situations. So it is, in our situation, it would be a much smaller effort, and our conversation centered around who would have to be involved in that, meaning the water resources departments, the irrigation districts, cities, counties, all needing to plan together, including an entity called State Water Master, Siobhan Hayes, and in particular to be careful that the pear orchards as one audience or one big part of that. And then there's the vineyards, the second big part. And so then it's important that the small farmers are equally represented, that they're not overwhelmed by those extremely large other two sectors. And then we also talked briefly about the cannabis use of water, that it's gone from 20,000 legal acres down to 1,000 to 2,000, they said, but there's still a lot of illegal use. And so that's an ongoing issue. And we weren't too clear on that. And so anyway, it sounded like it was a really viable option for our area. It's already being done in, we believe, in Bend. So it's something that would be a target of a cooperative effort.
Thank you, Trish. Thank you for bringing that up, and let's follow up on that and put that in the Google Docs so that we don't overlook it. Julie, and then Carol.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to take a moment and thank everybody and all the organizers for putting this summit together. I really enjoy seeing everyone from different perspectives because it's going to take all of us together, putting our minds together, heads together to come up with the solutions that we need going forward into the future. So I appreciate the diversity of stakeholders here, all the people that have come tonight and are investing their time into our water future. In the chat, I put that we are holding a free gray water workshop all about laundry to landscape. If you're interested, it's going to be on October 22nd at SOU. put a phone number and an email address in there. If you're interested, please give us a call or email so that we can get you on our registration list. The instructor is Laura Allen, who actually literally wrote the book on laundry to landscape. So she's with Graywater Action. There's a great website as well that you can get more information directly and see some videos. If you can't make the workshop, there's some really great videos. So you can reach out to me at Medford Water if you're interested in more information. I also wanted to let everyone know that on October 5th, next week, the Oregon Water Resources Department is going to be hosting a meeting discussing groundwater allocation, specifically in our area. And it's going to be a listening session. They're working on rulemaking for groundwater and looking at over-allocated areas specific to groundwater. So thank you for putting that, Chris. I appreciate that. So everyone who did put a link and some information there on that meeting that's coming up next week. So just wanted to let everyone know that there's some opportunities to collaborate coming up in the future.
Thank you, Julie. Carol, why don't you speak, and then should we check in and see about our report time if we have any?
What I wanted to speak about was I wanted to emphasize a chat that was put in by Lion Waxman to everyone, and it's got a YouTube, it's got a link. And he was in our group, and what I found to be just incredible was all the positive information that he gave us and all the solutions that are already here. And the last line on his chat was thinking of viewing water as abundance, not out of scarcity. And I just think it's so incredibly important that we do focus on
no government, no politician.
Oops.
So I just wanted to tell you all to please look at the website, and you can back up your chat and find him, and it will be worth your time, all of our time. So thank you.
I think this session is being recorded, and also we're recording the chats, and we have a Google Doc with a lot of this information, and we're going to address all of those. How are we doing on time right now? Is there anyone who wanted to report from their breakout circle that hasn't been heard?
Cindy, I'm wondering if we could share the Jamboard, take a little pause, and then we could come back together. So maybe we could.
That's a great idea. Let's do that.
Okay, friends, if you were with us last week, you have already seen this cool resource. But this is a feature on Google Drive or Google options there. It's called a Jamboard. And so this is an opportunity where we will share the link to the Jamboard in the chat, and you can click on it. And what you can see the menu on the left, opens a new website. So we're on a different site, the different link that we'll add into chat. And on the left-hand side, you can see a menu. And here's this little sticky note. When you hover it over, it says sticky note. You can click on that. And then we really want to see your ideas. So you can type in there and push save. And then you can cancel the next one if you want to keep going, but go ahead and make at least one. We want to see your ideas, and you can grab that sticky note and pull it to another area. But what we have here is a Jamboard where we can track ideas in very short snippets, because I know that there were a lot of great ideas out there, and we want to make sure that we have a couple of different ways to offer those ideas. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we'll go ahead and put that Jamboard link into chat. Stephen added it, and then there it is again. So you can click that link. It'll open another window next to the screen, and we'll open that opportunity to type some more ideas there that maybe were shared in the group. If you haven't had a chance that you want to highlight or that you want to make sure get recorded as inspiring or possible solutions that you think could address some of the topics that we've heard about here tonight. Yes, there had a question about could the Google Doc be available to participants between sessions? Absolutely, we're happy to make that link available so that people can look at some of the ideas and conversations that happen there. So while the Jamboard is happening, please, we do have about 5 more minutes for more feedback or reporting back from the small groups. So Cynthia, I'll turn it back to you. Let's see if more folks have ideas to share. This is really, we want to make sure that we all get to hear some of the great ideas that were shared in breakout circles.
And if you have a problem coming back to the Zoom room, you just click on your Zoom icon at the bottom of the screen and it'll close out your Jamboard window if you want to come back. I think that might be confusing. Are there any group scribes? Thank you, scribes, for putting information in there that in the Google Docs. That is awesome. Belle, were you a scribe and your reporter? Okay, let's hear from you.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. I was in group 7, possible indigenous practices to implement for water conservation. A little bit missing was the input about what indigenous practices might be for implementing for water conservation, but that we sort of pointing to that. However, Coyote Marie did bring up that she had gone to Standing Rock, and what she got was that respect is really important, listening and respect, and coming together. That she was not present to that at Standing Rock. Also, what was brought up is Robin Wall Kimmerer's grading sweetgrass, and the idea that there's some incredible videos on YouTube of Robin, but that book, if you don't know it as a resource, is exquisite, and also on Audible, exquisite as it's read by her. Mainly, it's collaboration. That getting together is imperative, and so I think indigenous people in this land. One of the participants wrote, "Indigenous people of this land, in her opinion or his opinion, hold more sustainable, equitable, and humane practices. The current and many-year practices of how America manages water, etc., is clearly not working and doesn't seem to account for love and kindness and collaboration. I trust Indigenous folks' input more than the people who have been." And I would just end with just Jeff Golden's sharing about really, it's in the laws. I mean, we have got to get underneath the whole system of have archaic laws that are running this show. And that has just got to end because we say so. So that's it from group number 7.
Thank you, Belle. Carl, do you want to speak?
Okay, so we were talking about reuse of treated wastewater. And basically, I think the general concept is that there's a lot of benefit that could be realized if we did reuse our wastewater from the sewer plants, but there's some big hurdles, primarily on the regulatory side, the amount of treatment that you would need to do that. And then financially, the infrastructure you'd have to build both to upgrade your treatment plants to meet those standards and to, am I muted?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So it says unmute. So, and then the infrastructure you need to actually distribute it to where you want it to be. So it's a tremendous investment that would have to take place. There are benefits that would be realized. I think one issue is that there is very little incentive for a utility to make that investment when it's not necessary to meet permit requirements. There's been efforts in the past to try to do recycle in this region. When Ashland was faced with their phosphorus limits back around 2000, they put forward a plan to do some irrigation rather than discharge into Bear Creek or Ashland Creek. That fell apart primarily due to public perception. They got a lot of backlash on that. Medford's had a couple of efforts to try to do that to address temperature standards. They had a plan in place. I'm thinking this was about 2002, 2003, somewhere about then, to irrigate about 500 acres of farmland. And two things happened there. One is that there was a timing issue with when they needed to be out of the river compared to when the farmers needed the water, because there's a time when the farmers don't want the water because it's harvest time. And then there was also some changes in how DEQ was interpreting the temperature standard. And it turned out that, at that point, they didn't need to, that they were already in compliance. So, there's been efforts. There's just a lot of hurdles on it. It's a good source of water. There's a lot of water that goes through those treatment plants. And if you could make good use of it, then, you'd be better off for it. But like I said, there's just some pretty significant barriers that would stand in the way.
Thank you. Do we have any more? We have time for one more, I think. One more share from a group. Any more groups?
Can you hear me? This is Danny.
Danny, yes.
So I was wasn't going to speak, but I was in the group about landscaping, and basically we came up with just swales as a permaculture practice. Absorb the best place to store water is in the ground, and it's kind of like with the alignment with the beavers to slow the water down, but higher up than in the waterways, absorb it into the hillsides, and then the springs and the wells would stay fuller longer throughout the year, and then also more edible landscaping, food not lawn, and of course drought resistant landscaping as well. Those are the main things that we came up with.
Thank you, Danny, for bringing those up. That is awesome. I hope those got in the Google Doc, but they are recorded. So thank you for tuning in. I know you were out of town, and wow, what a schedule you have. I think, thank you so much, Danny.
Yeah.
Rihanna, do you want to take it from here, or?
Great. Sure. Thank you, Cynthia. And thank you, everyone, for the really great feedback and really great ideas and solutions shared here tonight. I was engaged in a lively conversation, and it sounds like each of you were, and we've got some really great ideas now in the Google Doc notes. So thank you for participating there, and also on the Jamboard. So I really appreciate that we're all here coming together, really honoring and valuing that water is life, and really looking at what can we do. We have acknowledged that there are challenges, and now we are ready for action and solutions. And so thank you for being already part of the solution. Stephen, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen. Great. So I do want to make sure we're not quite ending yet, but I do want to make sure that we've got some dates on your calendars, because it is so valuable, each and every one of you who are able to attend session 1 and now coming back to kind of build on that information. And so we really encourage you to make sure that Wednesday, October 12th is from 6 to 8 p.m. here on Zoom, same link. But we'll be talking about channeling better water outcomes for agriculture. So we're going to be looking at agriculture, regenerative agriculture, different types of agriculture, and how can agriculture be a solution. And so you can see there some of the issues that our farmers are facing here in the Valley with historic droughts. And so this is an important and pivotal topic. And I really hope that each of you will come back to join us on October 12th for that conversation around agriculture in particular. Thanks. So as you may remember, our conversations here tonight and then on October 12th are really situated in part of the larger Rogue Valley Water Solutions Summit. And so we have a couple more sessions coming up. Also on October 26th, the veins of the valley. So starting to really look at wetlands and waterways. And so from that particular vantage point, what are possible solutions? Then November 9th, looking at the catch basin, a flood of issues and possibilities. So really starting to look at some of those disaster scenarios. How can we avert mistakes, floods, fires, market pressures, and others. So we know that water is a complex topic, and so that is why we've tried to create the kind of portion it out so that we can continue to really look at this multifaceted, very complex issue from different vantage points. And then importantly, on Saturday, November 12th, will be an in-person event where we're really looking at a summary and where do we go from here. This will be an action planning gathering where we really start to put some of these ideas and solutions, this collaboration energy into action. What are the next pieces that we want to take on? What are steps that we can take on together? So please make sure that those dates are on your calendar. It'll be the same Zoom link for each of the online portions, but then we will be in person together November 12th. Great, and thank you very much. We really value the feedback that we've received already. Thank you very much for all of those of you who have provided feedback for session 1. We do have another form you can click on in the chat, and we'll be sending that out over email. So that's an opportunity to provide feedback. So we're really interested to hear from you, to keep improving, to learn about what's been effective. As Belle pointed out earlier, we made some changes and we adapted between session 1 and 2. So let's really keep the communication and the collaboration flowing so that we can really create a summit where it maximizes our time and collaborative energy here. So thank you for your feedback. Great. This is a free event, and this event has required hundreds and hundreds of hours of volunteer effort and time, organizing, communications, collaborations. And we are all so grateful for the Southern Oregon Pachamama Alliance and the Rogue Valley Water Solutions Summit organizing team. As we mentioned before, this is a team of elders who are taking this on and saying, if not us, then who? And so at this time, I'd really like you to consider making a donation to support this water summit. This is an opportunity to express your value and your gratitude for this amazing education and the opportunity that we've had here, and to make a meaningful donation, to be generous, and to say, we want more of these types of summits and conversations happening. We want this to continue. And so please do make a donation to mirror the appreciation that you feel from all of the work that has gone into the Water Summit to make this conversation possible. So hopefully the link was shared into chat where you can make a donation. Thank you at the Southern Oregon Pachamama Alliance website, and click donate. So thank you for being generous and for supporting the continued success of the Water Solutions Summit. So we're going through just a few more announcements and housekeeping pieces here. We did want to also mention a community event. We've had a special announcement to share about a community event that everyone is invited to, the Otter Lifter Canoe Land and People Recognition Community Ceremony. So this is during the Ashland High School installation that's honoring Indigenous peoples from 4:30 to 7 p.m. on Thursday, October 6th. And you can see more details provided in today's online edition of the Ashland News, ashland.news. And you can see the picture there of the Otter Lifter Canoe dedication ceremony coming up here October 6th. So it's a really special canoe and ceremony to honor. So please be there October 6th. Okay, we have just one more piece. Thank you for our closing and appreciation. We just really wanted, again, to say thank you to each of you for being present today and for your open hearts and collaborative spirit that you brought to session 2. Thank you again. If we could all just give a little silent applause to our organizing team and our great speakers tonight. Thank you so much, and we'll pass it back to Cynthia for our closing.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming and your wonderful ideas, and let's keep those ideas flowing. I wanted to share some words that are on one of the 4 plaques at the Otter Lifter canoe site that Rihanna mentioned earlier. One of those plaques reads, and also I want to thank Danny, but I believe it's his, I don't know if he's still on the call, but I believe he and his family donated that canoe, and really appreciate that is a symbol that we can look to. But one of those plaques said, "We dedicate this canoe as a living prayer for our future generations, our non-human relatives, and our earth as a whole. May it awaken our responsibility to listen to, learn from, and act in harmony with Mother Earth. May it serve as a reminder to the contribution of Indigenous peoples, a recognition of the interconnectivity of all beings, and a promise to decolonize our lifeways. As Grandma Aggie said, we are all in this leaky canoe together." Thank you so much for coming this evening. We are so grateful to our water. We're grateful to the guidance we've received from Grandmother Agnes, Reverend Coyote, and other wisdom keepers, our speakers and advisors, our community partners and sponsors, and to all of you water babies. So why don't we raise our glasses of water in gratitude right now? Take a sip if you still have your water. And finally, let's all shout out our appreciation to the water and to our water circles right now.
Thank you, water.
Thank you.
Thank you, water.
Water.
Thank you. Thank you to the water. Yeah.
Water is life. Thank
Water
you, water
goddesses.
is life.
Life.